Oh, there we go. So, welcome to episode 148, Microcks in Quarkus. We got Laurent, Holly, and Clement. Sorry, the screen is just messing up for me now. I hope that's just on my side. So, anyway, we will get into Microcks in a few minutes. Get to Laurent. On news on the Quarkus side, I'll do that one. Hey, there we go. Yeah, well, we have all our releases. Things are a little bit different this holiday season. One is that we decided to not give a release in December, but we will do one in. Yes, not in December, and we'll do it in January instead. Just because no one is around anyway. And the other big thing is that Quarkus main is now targeting Java 17. And that's awesome, but be careful because you still don't want anything that goes into the older version, like the 3.2 LTS or that kind of thing. Still need to run on Java 11. But yeah, means main is now on Java 17, and yeah, we can do all kind of fun. I don't know if that brings anything, but yeah.
That means like that the next Quarkus version, so 3.7, will require Java 17.
Yes, correct.
So that's the main big change. So you won't be able to run that version with Java 11. If you are still using Java 11, you will need to stay on 3.2. Well, 3.2 being the LTS, or 3.2 to 3.6.
But yeah. So and this we put a blog out, and also we announced when we did 3.0, Quarkus 3.0, that we deprecate Java 11. So that deprecation has now come up, and we've moved Java 17. And and it shouldn't. I didn't see any negative feedback on it, and also big part of Quarkus was already on 17. Like all the camel Quarkus was requiring Java 17. So so no big drama there yet.
Multi-line. Yeah, well.
Oh yes, that's true. And just don't use Java records and keys. What we found out,
but that's how the JVM is doing things. Yeah. Like yes, records as key of a hash map is going to not do what you believe.
Yeah. So, well, it will do what you believe, but just slower than you want.
Well, really slower.
So anyway, was that it? Yeah, and then we had. So we said we had a 3.2 LTS, and the 17 there'll be a LTS somewhere in the new year. We'll try and figure out when that lands. But yeah, there'll be more news about that later. So, Laurent. Is that Laurent? Is it Laurent?
Laurent.
Laurent in French, but yeah, can understand Laurent. No problem. No problem. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me today. That's very cool.
Yeah. So,
you want me to introduce the topics?
And go to the topic. Just let us know when you get a screen.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, my name is Laurent Broudoux, and I'm actually the co-founder of a project called Microcks, and in fact, the name comes from microservices Microcks, and it was a side project for years. I studied it. I think it was in 2015 or 2016, the first line of codes. And now it's a full-time project. I had the great opportunity to work full-time on it since the beginning of it this year. So pretty happy with this. And the purpose of Microcks is to provide a tool for doing microservices or API mocking and contract testing. So purely focused on those two topics with, let's say, an original approach that aims to provide a very consistent way of doing things, whatever the kinds of API you're dealing with. So it could be, of course, REST APIs, but we've got the same set of features for GraphQL, for gRPC, and for all the things related to async API, to event-driven architecture. So even if you want to mock Kafka messages, MQTT messages, want to be aware also to do contract testing of your EDA. Be sure that the messages you are sending and receiving are correctly formed. We are providing, yes, the same approach, whatever the kind of API.
Cool. And how? I'm actually. I didn't know it was that old. I thought it was just a year or two, but maybe I just haven't paid attention.
No, actually, as it has been a side project for years, yes, we're really starting to have something that, yes, let's say that fulfill the promises about 1 or 2 years ago. So before that, I was what we used to say a cloud native architect. I was working at end users in financial services, in big insurance companies also. And I also used to work at Red Hat as I was a specialist on middlewares and on OpenShift as well.
Cool.
It's the best feeling, isn't it, when something that you start as a side project and then you get to go full time on it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You realize that, yes, this was not a shitty idea and you can make a real stuff about it. So it's really cool. Really, really cool. So, so today I've prepared a little agenda. So just starting to talk about the inception of the Microcks project and give you an overview on what it is about and how does it works. And finally ending with a live coding session demonstrating how it can fit within the Quarkus extension ecosystem and how you may typically want to apply it within your project. So let me know when you're ready. And okay, I've seen that the switch has been done, so you can now see my screen. So,
Yes, just
okay. So talking a bit about Microcks, I've already explained to you that it was fully dedicated to API mocking and testing. And one nice thing also is that we just entered the Cloud Native Computing Foundation this summer. So we are now a CNCF sandbox project. And I have to say, we are maybe one of the first projects that is really dedicated to application developer, not infrastructure, but really developers. So really one of our mission is to be able to solve the pain for the developers, the pain about, building, setting up complex environment when they have a lot of dependencies, because I'm pretty sure you know that yes, could be really a mess when you're starting to have dependencies on microservice B, microservice C, D, and you have to pull out everything and try to guess how everything could be launched and could be configured to work with the part of the application you're actually developing. So really want to ease this pain for application developers. And so basically, before going further, yes, I have this opportunity to work full-time now on Microcks, as I am a Postman employee. And Postman just created last year something that is called Open Technologies Department. And this is the department where they are investing in open source standards, in open source communities. So standards like JSON schema, async API, Open API, or communities like GraphQL, this kind of stuff. And the Microcks project just entered the Postman, so it was 9 months ago during March.
nice. Any task on the front page you said that says Copilot integration. How does that work in Micro?
Yeah, so it's not Copilot in a sense of GitHub Copilot, but we have I would say that like any other project is doing this last months, we have integrating some generative AI in the project. So if like me, you're a lazy developer and just want to start with the bare minimum, Microcks can also generate samples for you. So basically, we'll see how it works in a few minutes. To be able to do mocking and contract testing, we need examples. And if you have not provided examples at all, AI will help us to generate some nice ones. So yeah, this is new features we recently added. Okay, so about the challenge that we are trying to address. So typically in microservices or API management, there are a lot of challenges about design, architecture, governance, security, policies, and so on and so forth. But really, we wanted to focus on 3 different challenges that were very important for us. The first one was about the business experience. I mean, when you're a new product owner and you want to design a new API, most of the time it's really hard and it's really long before having some kind of feedbacks on the design. And so Microcks is there to really allow you to shorten the feedback loops. So once you
I think that was a very long feedback loop.
Yeah, I think we lost Laurent.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
We got you back. Yep.
Yes.
Oh no, I think we lost you again.
Maybe not. Yeah, I can see here his connection is marked as yellow, or 5 out of 10. So, well, I'll just be happy it wasn't me this time. So yeah. All right.
All right. Let's.
Maybe I'm back. Sorry.
Yes, you're back.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, in fact, it was a very long feedback loop. So, thanks to mocking and simulation, we try to have very smart mocking engine, and we want to have a very short feedback loops. The second challenge is about the dev experience, because we want to help with setting up complex environment and still providing the ability for the developers to work in parallel, not having to wait for some other microservices before actually starting writing code. And the third one, so this is parallelized development. And the third one is about conformance, because we all know that releasing the first version of your API is not the hardest part. It's actually when you are releasing the version, let's say 1.5, you want to be sure that you didn't introduce any breaking changes and you are still having the backward compatibility with the previous version. So this is the kind of things we are doing thanks to contract testing, and this could be totally integrated into your CI/CD pipelines. So basically, we have 2 use cases in Microcks. The first one is about providing simulation, providing live mocks. And the original way of doing that for Microcks is to directly use any of the different assets, artifacts you may already have in your organization. We don't want to have any translation, or we don't want to provide our own way of doing things. So we are directly reusing stuff like gRPC, protobuf description, GraphQL schema, OpenAPI, Swagger specification, or async API stuff. We may also reuse some stuff like Postman collection directly. So even if you don't have any contract, let's say formal contract, as in a standard specification, we may infer some mocks, some simulation from existing Postman collection, for example. And the second one is the other side, the side of the use case is once you have developed your implementation, we are able to make sure that it is conformant with your contract and with the previous version of the contract, strictly put. Is that clear? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that unlike most of the tools we see, it's not limited to just HTTP or REST, so it goes beyond. So we have gRPC, we have Kafka, we have GraphQL, so you can use that tools for almost everything you are building. So that's super cool.
Yeah, exactly. One of the starting point of Microcks was that I was in a very large organization, a big insurance company, and of course we have a huge patrimony of SOAP web services, starting to play with REST, starting to play also with GraphQL, gRPC, and I realized that all those different technologies were there to stay dozens of years still. And that's why I wanted to have a very consistent approach, whatever the kind of API. So to do that in Microcks, we are relying on two things. We are relying, of course, on contracts, specifications, descriptions, Postman collections, for example. And we are also relying on examples, because really, when I talk about example, I don't mean a random example, those lorem ipsum stuff, but real life examples. So real life example that the product owner may give you as a specifications, and because I think they are the best way to really convey the intent of your API, of your microservice. And when they are really well crafted, we can turn that into executable data sets. And this is the same data sets that can be used to provide mocks and conformance tests once you will have finished developing your application. And so typically, even if we integrated generative AI, like we talked about a few minutes ago, it's really, as I said before, for lazy developers that don't want to lose time, or don't think it's important to lose time specifying examples. And so that in that way, we are able, to use generative AI to try to guess the most real possible example from the contracts and maybe from other pre-existing examples.
And I guess if you do take the time to put in the examples, maybe with AI assistance for some of the more boring parts, then you're sort of hooked really nicely into almost like a BDD flow, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And with the different tests we also run through this last month, we see that AI is very performant and very clever when it comes to interpreting, let's say, the name of the properties you give in the contract, also the description. Just with a proper description, it allows the AI to restrict the field of possible regarding the value and so on. So really, I would say that, AI is doing a really great stuff just by regarding the description and the name of the attributes of your interface. So, cool. And as I said by Clément, we are doing this, once again, for any kind of API, of specification. And with the async API specification, we are now supporting up to 8 different protocols. So you may do things on Kafka, on MQTT, on WebSocket as well. So everything runs well.
How much usage do you see for SOAP?
How much? Sorry.
Usage do you see for the SOAP?
Yeah, in fact, we are still using a huge amount of SOAP out there, and a huge amount of users in the community that are now doing either modernization of their technology stack for SOAP. So they may use Microcks as a non-regression tool, but also trying to move from SOAP to REST APIs and still having older versions managed with Microcks and SOAP, and newer version with a REST API and SOAPs. And Microcks still makes a lot of sense.
No, this is the thing that people keep forgetting is like the most popular extension we have in Quarkus outside Quarkus itself is the CXF extension. Maybe not for writing services, but to talk to stuff, because we have about 15 years of SOA. That's that needs to kind of still exist. So no. I see you have all these different kind of API. Do you know how do you want to position yourself to like there's this Citrus framework? I don't know if you know that one.
Yeah, I know that one. Yes,
Yeah.
and I think at one moment, one future integration of Microcks and Citrus could make sense because, as I said before, Citrus can be very helpful for defining some kind of BDD-oriented test on top of APIs, and this is something that is not handled by Microcks at the moment. We are doing contract testing, but I would say at the syntactic level, taking care about the structure of messages, about the serialization stuff and so on. But I would say that Citrus could be a nice addition on top of that to be able to also check the conformance of business rules, business workflows that are using APIs. So I think there is some kind of overlap because Citrus can also do contract testing for APIs, but I would say that it could be also very nice to stack them together.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Cool. What's interesting is to see that testing, which has been the most boring activities since the beginning of software, is getting revolutionized since a few years with new tools and things like that. So a few years ago, we remember Spock or Rest Assured, and we say, "Oh, that's so great!" And now we have Microcks, Citrus, Karate. I think Max, you have been using that. It's amazing how well all those tools are emerging now. It doesn't make testing less boring, but it makes way more effective.
Sure.
Well, and you can have fun learning some new tool and framework at the same time.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like that?
Okay. Just to finish on this introduction before switching to actual code. So historically, Microcks can be deployed anywhere thanks to native Kubernetes support. So we were it was very easy to be deployed on vanilla Kubernetes on OpenShift because we have an L chart, we have an operator, we have also some kind of Docker Compose deployment. But at some time, we saw that developers are still struggling with this kind of usage, wanting to develop on their laptop and having all the dependencies at hand, and being able, to, of course, access middlewares or databases like you are doing with Quarkus Dev Services, but also using their own business APIs they depends on. So we wanted really to evolve and to focus on this. And that's why last year we produced it was a first step in this direction. We provided a Docker desktop extension to really ease the pain of setting up Microcks and having all those services. And we were looking, very in depth at those things called test container. And so we released an official test container. It was 3 or 4 months ago. We are now supporting, the Java binding, the Node.js binding, and the Golang binding. And obviously now that's why we are here today. We've released this official Quarkus extension. So now the Quarkus core, the Microcks core, is very, very lightweight. So it can be directly integrated as a Quarkus extension, and you can use it within your dev session, but you can also use it within your unit test. It's really easy to just pop out a container at the beginning of test and then realize your test with all your dependencies mocked and simulated by Microcks, and then release everything at the end of the test. So that's the demonstration we are going to see today. Any question before we start? Yeah.
I think it's great. Yes.
Good. Okay, so the scenario I've prepared for today is this one. We are focusing on this part in the middle, the order service, okay, that belongs to the order domain. And basically, we want to be able to place orders for pastries, okay? And for that, we are relying on a third-party API that is the one to access the pastry store when we have the availability of different pastries, the price of different pastries, and so on. And as a provider of this service, we also have the responsibility to provide an API for these different kind of partners so that you can place orders online or through different stores or through different partners. So I will rely on a third-party API, but I also have to provide this order API that has to be very stable and that has to be totally conformant regarding the design of the different orders. Okay. So we are going to have this very simple Quarkus application made of 3 different parts. One REST resource, the order, that relies on a service that implements the business logic, and that relies on a microprofile REST client that has to call this external REST endpoint. Still make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch. So can you still see my screen? I don't think it has switched yet.
I still see
Yeah,
the
see
we're
this-
slides.
still seeing the slides.
Okay. So maybe I have to reshare because I've changed the screen, but most of the time it is working. Let me share it again.
Yeah, we see the IDE now. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, but it's not complete. Sorry. This
Disappeared.
okay. So now we should be okay. Let me know. Is it okay on your side? Yeah.
I see.
Sort of.
Okay.
Yay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So I've got this order resource on API orders pass. Okay. Typical
So,
response.
Lauren, can you make the font bigger, because the resolution is kind of making it hard. So yeah, if any chance you could zoom in, that'll be good.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Now we can see.
Okay, perfect. So we have this typical REST controller here, okay, that allows to post and create an order. It relies on an order service. Oops, sorry, that you may place order here. This is the business logic. And this one relies also on a pastry API client, okay, that is a microprofile REST client. So I've not added Microcks to the mix yet. What I have typically is if I start my Quarkus application here, okay, you can see the startup is okay. And let's say I'm a developer trying to understand how it works. I may issue a simple curl command to invoke my API. So I wanted to place a new order for this API. Of course, I've got an error here. The millefeuille is not available. And I can see here on my Quarkus console that, okay, I've got an error while fetching pastries because I've got a connection refuse exception. Okay. Because typically I'm trying to join this port 1990 and it is not available. Okay. So getting back now to my application, I can understand this behavior because if you are looking at the application dot properties when you configure the target of your REST client, this is where you actually put this one. Okay, and in a normal situation, you will have to download this third-party microservice or try to connect you somewhere. Oh, sorry, I think you've got issues with the networks. Well, at least I've got issues on my side.
Bigger font would be good.
Bigger font still? Okay.
Oh, you need to split up a bit.
Yeah, just
sorry.
as soon as you change screen, it takes a few, like 30 seconds before it gets clear. But if you have a big font, then it's readable. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that yes, by default I'm here, and yes, typically I would have to retrieve the dependencies, start this service, and connect everything. So now what we are going to try to solve this issue using Microcks. So typically the first step to do is to integrate the Microcks dependency within your POM XML. Okay, so let's open my POM XML. And here I can just add this Microcks dependency here on the mix. Okay, so the extension is named Quarkus Microcks, and you can put it as a provided one because it's all that you need during test and development. That's okay. One thing we'll have to do, though, is to be able to add the different contracts so that Microcks can actually fetch them. So I've prepared some stuff here. Sorry if I can make this bigger, but I have prepared here the different contracts I will need. And I will put those contracts into my application, into the sources of my application. Just copy pasting them and merging them here.
Yeah, so we can't see the is a bit. Is that just like open API contracts, or what is it you're putting in?
Yes, exactly. So what I just added here is the Open API contract for my order service. You can see right here. I put it there into resources, and I have also in the test part, I have also added the Open API contract for my third-party API I'm relying on, the API pass-throughs one.
So
okay.
One thing to say is that Quarkus is already able to generate your Open API for when you're serving, so you can just copy and paste that one.
Yes, exactly. And if you also generate those Open API during the, let's say, the generate resources goals of Maven, we can also directly integrate and discover it. So here I'm just reuse Open API that has been already designed, but you can also generate and integrate it within your API. Okay. So just at this point, I will have to restart Quarkus dev service just to make it aware of the new Open API files. And you will see that if you check the Quarkus dev console, can you see it at the moment?
Yep.
Yeah. Within the dev UI, you will have this new extension here, Microcks, with the integration of the UI here. And you will see that typically Microcks has discovered two new APIs here. So I've got my API about service and my API about pastries. And you will find here the different samples, the different contracts that Microcks has discovered and that is exposing as smart mocks. Okay, so typically here you can see that if you want to fetch an API using its name, you have three different samples here that can be accessed from your application. So one last thing I have to do on the Quarkus side is to change my application settings just during the dev and to switch from an external definition to one definition that is actually provided by the Microcks dev service. So typically here, you will replace this microprofile REST client API with one that is provided by the Microcks dev service. Okay. And typically here we are using a convention, just saying that this API pass-tree will be provided on this endpoint /rest/API pass-trees/ the version of the API I'm targeting, simply put. Any question? Is that clear?
Yeah, no, it's clear. Your screen is still very blurry, so
yeah,
it takes a few seconds until we can actually read.
Yeah, so sorry. I'm living in the countryside, and I think we are in one of those bad days regarding network. I'm very sorry. And so,
what you should really be apologizing for is the fact that this demo doesn't come with live pastries. I'm getting hungrier and hungrier watching the demo.
I can understand. So now if I want to try out my application once again, you can see that just issuing the curl command, actually that's okay. I'm able now to order pastries, because typically what I've done is to reconnect my API client to the mocks that are provided by Microcks. And so I am able to test locally without hitting any third-party remote dependencies.
So Laurent, just to properly summarize that, so you took the contract, put them in the Quarkus applications, change the REST client to use the Microcks dev service, and voila.
And voila, exactly. All the dependencies are automatically discovered by Microcks dev service at startup of the Quarkus dev, and then that's it.
That's pretty cool. And again, this is not only for REST; it also works for gRPC, GraphQL, Kafka, and all the ones you mentioned.
Exactly. So this is the one nice thing that allows you to have I think a really nice dev experience, not having to pull out all the dependencies in the world. And the second thing that is nice with this dev service is that it also integrates within your unit test, so that you can easily test all the different pieces, all the different components of your application. So typically, let's say you want to test your microprofile REST client to be sure that you configured everything correctly. Okay, you can easily do this kind of thing. So let me use, I have prepared a unit test for this one. You can easily do things like this, just saying that you want to, let me check. Here, using this client to list the pastries having the small size, for example. Okay, and here you expect just one result. So this will allow you to test that all the things regarding network connectivity, serialization, and so on are correct. So doing this, just doing this, when you are running a test, you're actually starting a new Microcks dev service within your unit test and reconfigure your Quarkus application to still use the samples that were provided by Microcks. So this is really handy to test all the network and serialization stuff without creating any mock objects. We are just reusing the specs and the examples that may be attached to the specs to configure your unit test. Does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing to understand here is that it's not the pass-through API client that get mocked, it's the one that is called behind the scenes. So that's
exactly.
So that's what is cool. Yes.
Yeah, you're not mocking the Java class, or you are not mocking at the Java level, at the object level. you are mocking at the dependency, the third-party dependency level. So all the network stack, the network stack, the serialization stack are actually executed so that you fully complete your test your different the different layers of your application.
It also means, but that's my distributed system side speaking now, that because you have this and because you are not mocking at the Java level, but really at the network level, you can introduce a proxy to check what happens in your application when you increase the latency or when you have network failures and so on,
Yes.
without having to do anything. So and that's super cool. Because
Yes,
generally, most of the apps don't behave well in these cases.
Exactly. But this case can also be handled directly by Microcks, because typically you can also configure the response time, the failure rate of your different samples. So it's very easy to have Microcks simulate also the real behavior of a production system regarding, yes, the performance and regarding the error rate.
Even better. So that's great, because it's not only you are testing the integration, you can actually implement tests that verify that it's going to work in production.
Exactly. So so that is the first part. If you want to to test with your third parties dependency being totally mocked by Microcks.
So one thing, because Eric sent that, so the SUPS application, so the superheroes application of Quarkus, use Microcks at dev time, not at test time right now, but use Microcks, so you can actually test each of our components. I can't remember how many there is in the SUPS system. It's 5 or 6, but you can take each of them and don't need to start anything else, because everything will be mocked by Microcks. That makes it very, very powerful, especially if you are building microservices or if you have lots of services and you can't run all of them on your laptop, then you just use this and you have a proper integration. You can actually work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, yes, Eric just answered, we have something like 7 different components in the demo, and we started mocking also gRPC as well, and it works pretty well.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm trying to tease him for Kafka, but he asked me to open the pull request.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so this is one part of the thing. And the other part we want to be sure is that when we developed the exposed API, the order resource API, we want also to be sure that this API is actually conformant to the specification, to the Open API file we just imported in Microcks. So for the moment, we have just used this API pass trees. Oops. Sorry, there's a glitch here. No, it should be okay. We have just used the API pass trees, but we also discovered the order service API, the one we should be conformant to when developing the order resource. So another way of doing that and of using the Microcks dev service is that it enables you to write contract tests. Okay, and here, for example, I have a simple method when I want to realize a contract test against my OpenAPI specification. So here the things are pretty different. We are going to use some specific objects that are provided by the Microcks dev service. So typically here we will start to build what we call a new test request. So I want to test against this service interface or API interface, this order service on version 0.1. I want to run an Open API schema conformance test. And what I'm going to test is actually the internal endpoint that is exposed by my Quarkus application. That's where I'm using the the Quarkus HTTP port that is automatically injected into the test. And for that, I will then use one of the Microcks container utility here to ask Microcks to actually run the test that I provided before. And to be able to run this test, I will just need the Microcks container URL, and this is something that can be injected into your test. I'm going to do this here, for example. Here, I'm retrieving this URL by getting this property. This is initialized by the dev service. So I get this URL, and I'm asking the Microcks container to test my Quarkus endpoint with this specification. So here, just a small test, asserting that the test is okay. And if not okay, just, yes, getting into the details to get more information. So here again, I can really easily test this in isolation. So what it's going to do right now is, yes, bootstrap the Quarkus environment, bootstrap the Microcks dev service, load everything, and just do a contract test. And you see that it fails because, yes, I got, yes, my test actually failed. So you may get some additional explanation on why it fails by just getting the output. So basically here, if I'm running this test again with this output, you will see that, yeah, you get some explanation. So sorry, it's a bit, maybe if I'm doing this, you can see that object has missing properties because the order I get as a response when I try to place a new order has a missing property. The customer ID is missing within the response. And this is because, yes, as a developer, I have forgotten to include the customer ID as a response in the returned JSON object. So I can easily fix this and iterate on my development. But I would say that one nice thing with Quarkus and one nice way to integrate all of this is when you are using some stuff like the continuous testing in Quarkus. Okay. And so typically you can start the continuous testing stuff, having all your tests, yes, run by Microcks. And you can see that, yes, things are pretty fast. And if you get back to your implementation, so here, for example, I have forgotten to include the customer ID in the response, so I can get, yes, to the placeholder method, check here and see, yes, this one has been commented. I can uncomment, run again. And it's all green. So it's really powerful because you can integrate this, yes, continuously and check continuously that you are still conformant with your OpenAPI specification.
So this is so when you have contracts. So when your system is defined using contracts, and you need to make sure that you implement that contract the right way, so the next service can call you correctly and so on. And that way, with a single test, you can make sure that you are not missing anything. So that's cool, especially in large microservices system where contract is important.
Yeah.
So contract may be surprising for people doing REST, but it's actually pretty common when you are building ADA, especially with Kafka, where we're using schema registry, where every message is as a contract, a schema to define what it is. So this is not. This might be surprising for REST, but it's actually pretty common in some other areas. Or gRPC. Yeah. gRPC is actually a contract using your protobuf.
Yes, exactly. And because we provide the same consistent approach, it is always the same code you have to include in your test. So always this building a new test request and asking Microcks to perform the test, whatever the kind of contract. So it could be an OpenAPI JSON contract if you are doing REST. It could be an Avro schema contract if you're doing Avro on top of Kafka. It could be a protobuf schema for gRPC. Yeah, it will be always the same code you will have to introduce into your test. Microcks is managing everything undercover. So you are just, yes, focusing on making sure your implementation did not introduce any breaking changes.
So yeah, you can use it as a safety belt or to make sure, yes, you don't introduce something that changes the format.
Yeah, exactly.
That can break another service that you never heard about. So that's
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, exactly. And here we are doing this with just one version of the contract, let's say the latest one. But of course, if you introduce the previous version of the contract, Microcks will detect and will discover all those versions and will be also able to run tests against all these versions. So it's really powerful, as I said before, yeah, to check you did not introduce any regression.
That's super cool. Yeah. So if you are in a large microservice, not necessarily microservice, if you are a large service world, introducing contract will bring safety, and with such kind of tools, you can make sure that you're not drifting away from what was defined as an integration point between you and the people calling you.
Yeah, exactly. And even as you said before, if you're starting writing the code before the contract, you may generate one version of contract, but maybe in the subsequent iteration of your component, you will have to change the code. So you may have kept a backup of the previous generation plus the new contract that is generated. So this provides you, yes, an historical track of contracts that you may still want to be, conformant with.
Yeah, so that's very well. It has a very nice use case. If you are in kind of environment.
Yeah,
and it's such a nice fit into Quarkus with the integration in the dev UI and the continuous testing in the dev service. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, because I keep saying it. It's super simple to use. You just have your contract, drop them inside your code. You're done.
Yeah. So drop them is the first option and the most obvious when you are starting small, let's say. But you have also the ability to refer to an external contract. So, for example, here I've dropped the contract coming from my past 3 providers, but I can also refer to a Git URL where this contract is living. So each and every time this contract may be changed, I may still check that within my application, I'm still able to call this third-party library, this third-party API. So you have the choice, in fact, just put everything on your within your project, or put references to external resources.
Yeah, that can be very interesting in a CI environment if your contract is shared between teams and someone wants to modify the contract, and then the CI kicks in and download the version of the contract on Git and realize that it's actually breaking everything.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So the screen was a bit blurry. Where do you actually put the contract? Like which folder is that in?
So basically, you have the choice. Microcks will try to discover all the contracts coming from the source folder that are marked as resources. So it could be in main resources, it could be in test resources. Here I've put test resources and third parties. Basically, it will try to scrap those folders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or you can do it by any config or something.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is because we have there's the Open API generator, and there's this other product called Coyote that's also generating clients. And I was just wondering if you got that, because they can actually also pick up what's called contracts.
Mhm.
And it sounds like if we actually have a product that uses that, then Microcks will just pick it up,
Yep.
and it will work.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
means that, hey, if you're using your pastry service thing, you put it in. Not only will you get ability to test that most service, but you can also get a client that runs to it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so here we just put the default stuff in your application.properties, but you've got some other properties. So if you want to force the discovery or on some specific directories, if you want to force some behavior, some way of loading stuff in Microcks, there are a bunch of other properties that you can set up also here. But basically, by default, we are trying, yes, to discover everything.
And I think Clément's point about the value of using sort of a third-party location for these is a really good one, because at runtime, there's going to be a connection between the behavior of the client and the behavior of the producer. So you want to get, ideally, some of that connection back in at test time so that you discover the integration problems early. Whereas if otherwise, if everybody has their own local copy of the specification and then they drift apart, that doesn't get noticed unless they get refreshed.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And Eric mentioned something in the chat that is also interesting. Pretty sure it's used in the SUPS demo. Is that if you are on a multi-module project, then you can actually reference the contract from the other modules. So you don't have to start all your modules to get your system tested. You just start one, and that one reference the contract that has been generated in the other ones.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
exactly. And we also have the Microcks dev service that can be also reused by the different modules of the same repo. So you don't have to launch an instance for each and other modules if you're working on multiple ones. It's just reusing the same instance.
Yeah. So that's what we do with most of our dev service. So we discover them, and several applications running in dev mode will connect to the same container.
Exactly. That's a nice thing. Okay, so I think that's it for the demo. I was looking at my slide, but I think we ran through those 3 different ways of using the dev service directly in dev mode, but also through the integration of in unit test. So that's cool. I think we've got the good timing.
The Quarkus, Holly mentioned it, but the Quarkus integration make it super easy to use Microcks, and that create a great integration. Like it's dev service, dev UI, testings, everything all integrated. It's
yeah, cool. You got it. That's cool. And I just wanted to end up on this slide because I think that's a nice point at least that the feedbacks we've got from the community that really enjoy this test container and dev service stuff is that you have now the ability to have exactly the same source of truth for mocking, simulating, and also doing the testing stuff from the laptop to the QA clusters to the, let's say, to the production. Why not? We have users in the community that are testing stuff on their production using Microcks. And we've got with the same tools and the same source of truth, the same contracts everywhere. So I think that's really super cool and the nice feature that makes a lot of sense with Microcks.
That's amazing how integrated it is, and
yeah, and I think that's it. And of course, we are fully open source, so we need you. So you may try it and Yeah, do not hesitate sharing love, sharing stars. We always appreciate and having great feedback. It's always cool. Thank you very much.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I didn't have that many questions, but for those listening, sorry for the blurriness, but probably couldn't fix that on Laurent's side.
Yeah, maybe if Laurent agreed, we can try to get an offline recording of the demo and then share it on YouTube.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Laurent, if you could do the demo and just upload the video, then we can post that and then have that as a
Yeah,
thing.
very sorry for this, but yeah.
Yeah. So the audio's fine, and we could kind of follow it, but it was a lot of the stuff on screen was basically not. Yeah. It was random blocks moving around. So.
We have resources explaining how to use it in the superheroes demo. So try it. You will see it's really. When the first time I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, this is going to change literally how we do and integrate large systems."
Did we talk about this compared to pack texting, or because this is kind of
no, not yet, but we're already doing this another thing, and
I don't know.
This can last for 20 minutes.
I know.
But Holly, maybe if you want to say a word about Pact.
So Pact is another contract testing framework, and Pact has a slightly different model. So it's consumer-driven rather than provider-driven, which has the disadvantage that if you want your Pact stuff to talk to your OpenAPI stuff, it's a heavy lift. So you can't reuse those assets. And Pact is moving to be more modular and have plugins, but Pact does tend to be very much sort of REST first, and it came from that REST world.
Nice. Lauren, you want me to share the screen, or is it something else?
Maybe put the link in the chat if some of you are interested on having a deep dev comparison. Yeah.
I'll do that one.
Yeah, I wrote this a few months ago to explain the differences. To Michael.
Yeah. No, as Clement said, there's a lot of stuff happening. And sorry, I'm getting echo. That's great. But yeah, no, a lot of stuff happening in testing, so that's good. But let's cut the time, and thank you for joining, Lauren. And we'll put the links up after the call.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really cool.